This is Mackenzie again. I'm going to talk to you about the Chapter 7 critical questions and answers. So the first question is, how much time do you recall spending in school thus far learning about history of Europe, about Africa? What do you think that this says about the way education is delivered and what we choose to learn? I think that I learned almost nothing about the history of Europe and the history of Africa until my freshman year of college, which is this year. And I learned that Europeans, aka us, were no good, and Africa basically got pooped on the whole time. I'll elaborate. Africans, throughout the entire 20th century, African culture in every single aspect except for art was completely hindered by outside cultures. For example, there was no religion that had not been impacted by the Europeans, basically the Europeans. And I didn't know anything about Africa at all. I read a couple books on Africa, but it was like all fiction, science fiction, and Europe basically I basically just learned about the Holocaust. I didn't learn about anything else that I learned this year in the world in the 20th century. And I think that there's a reason why American education only focuses on the good things, apparently the good things that Americans do, just to marginalize white supremacy. I think that the system that America is built on is built to keep white people the highest ranking, and it's really hard to break because people are blinded by it, which is really scary because you have to step out of your box to see the truth, just like you have to step out of the box to learn about animal rights or communism in China, or, things that aren't mainstream around here. The second question is, what would you consider the three most important achievements in civil rights for African Americans since the 1900s? What role did whites and blacks play in making these events happen? I think that one thing that I think is extremely important to the Civil Rights Act is marriage. I think it was like 43. No, it couldn't have been 43. I read that wrong. Early 1900s, it became legal to be married. I think it was like a free black and a enslaved black could get married. And I also want to emphasize that throughout history in the entire world, for as long as we can remember, religion does do one thing good, and that is the majority, it helps people in extreme times of hardships and loss or grievances. You almost have to cling on to religion to be sane. And those who are not ended up staring at their navels too long and being philosophical thinkers, and often some drink themselves to death. So I guess that depends on their perspective of what's good and bad. Anyway, another thing is the end to slavery, if you want to call it an end, in my perspective. And another thing would be the major social change. For example, the 24th Amendment was ratified, which means that black people were now able to vote, which is extremely important. And it was said to be sort of the illusion of change, or the illusion of equality, for a little while, until they realized that it wasn't really equality yet. And the last question is, growing numbers of blacks are immigrating to the United States, and what impact might this have on what it means to be black or African American in the United States? I think this is kind of similar as to like what it means to be Mexican in the United States. You can say, "Oh, you're from Peru? Oh, do you know this guy? Do you know David Perez?" No, I don't know David Perez. I am from Peru, not Mexico. They're two different places. It's just like saying, "Oh, what's it like in California if you're from Minnesota?" You've never been there probably, unless you have a lot of money and want to go to Disney World or Land, I think it is. But it's kind of arrogant in a way to say, like, because people in America are just gonna start like relating Caribbean people and people from Africa to like American-born Black people, but there's gonna be like a whole bunch of different things that they have to watch out for when they come to America, because they know about the racial division in America, even though they want to come over here because it's better economically and healthcare and housing. Everything's a little bit better, even though it still really sucks. But I think it's kind of a hard question to answer. And I don't know, the social construction of race is just kind of nasty, and the people that make these mistakes are unintelligent, even though I could say that most people do this, including I when I was younger. But it's just because I was presented with false information, and if we are able to present our children with accurate information, which is a long stretch, then that would maybe help us out a little bit. But we have a long ways to go, and the purpose of learning all these things is to fight the good fight in life and to find the flame of passion. But when people are only going to school and learning about these things in school when they're just doing it to get their gen ed degree, then it's not going to go very far. But maybe that's what our society is constructed for. Maybe that's the white supremacist society and the racial construction.